The forge stood silent, a wound in the earth. Ancient pylons hummed weakly as if mourning the centuries of heat and hammer once born in its heart. Corin Vale knelt beside its fractured mantle, fingers brushing over circuitry laced with dust and blood. "You think you can fix that?" A voice like sharpened ice rang above him. He glanced up. She stood tall, armored in ether steel, her white-bladed spear leaning across one shoulder. Tysera Vane, the blade of Varelli's. Even without her armor, she would have looked lethal. Her silver hair was bound back with a war cord revealing markings carved into her temple. Aelari war sigils. "You're no warrior," she said flatly. "You're just soft flesh and false pride." Corin stood slowly. His hands were stained with oil, not blood. "I didn't come here to fight. I came here to fix your forge." Tysera snorted, stepping closer. "The forge only yields to warriors. You have neither flame nor lineage. Then let me prove it wrong." Earlier that cycle, Corin arrived on Varelli's with a salvager's visa and a promise. Serve as a civilian technician for 3 standard months, and his sentence, wrongfully accused of hacking a military drone, would be nullified. What they didn't say was that most humans sent to Varelli's never lasted a week. The Aelari were warriors first, scholars second. They saw technology as sacred, almost religious. No one touched their forges but blood-sworn smiths or seasoned tacticians. But the war had taken many of both. So when Corin offered to help rebuild the fallen Eastern Forge, the council laughed. All but one, General Tysera Vane, didn't laugh. She dismissed him, coldly. Yet now, as the forge sputtered under his care, reactivating one system after another, the mocking eyes turned to wary glances. "You bypassed the resonance lock?" a tech officer asked, jaw tight. Corin wiped sweat from his brow. "Not bypassed, I coaxed it open. The locking nodes were fused because of an ether backlash. They needed to be resynchronized." Tysera stood behind them, arms crossed. "You're lucky," she murmured. "You could have been incinerated. Or I just know how to listen. Machines don't speak, only to those who've never learned to hear them." For a moment she was silent. On the 3rd night, the forge's heart pulsed again. Orange light flowed through the crystalline conduits and the heat returned. Gentle at first, then roaring. The forge lived, and so did Corin's place among them. But peace was never meant to last. A scouting horn cried across the valley. Sirens flared, plasma streaked the sky. Enemy dropships bearing no banners descended like vultures. Raiders. The forge compound erupted into chaos. Corin grabbed his tools, not weapons. "Get to shelter," someone yelled. He didn't. Instead, he raced for the control pylons, rerouting power to shield sectors. Fragments of crystal rained down as enemy fire tore across the ridgelines. A warbeast leapt from a broken skiff, twice the height of a man, eyes glowing red. It charged him. Corin spun, ducked, slid beneath its legs, and activated a containment snare. The beast crashed into a field that magnetized its limbs to the ground. "Not bad," a voice growled. Tysera landed beside him. Spear, already soaked in alien ichor. "You should be dead," she said. He panted, wiping blood from a split lip. "You sound disappointed." "Only mildly." Later, in the healing chambers, Corin sat, clutching a warmed cloth to his ribs. Tysera stood across from him. "You risked your life. No weapons, no armor, no command." He met her gaze. "I risked my life because people were dying. I didn't need a title for that." Her eyes narrowed, something unreadable flickering behind them. "You're still no warrior. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true." He smiled. "Then, let me keep proving you wrong." The Forest of Spears had been a myth for generations until they stepped into it. Shards of petrified war lances jutted from the earth like jagged teeth. Bones littered the twisted underbrush, remains of warriors who'd attempted to cross the cursed land. The sky above flickered with auroras of static interference, and every breath tasted like old metal and ozone. Corin walked carefully behind Tysera, avoiding the traps she didn't need to see to know were there. She moved with fluid certainty, like someone who'd grown up dancing between danger and death. He moved with purpose, but not grace, yet somehow he never triggered a single trap. "You don't belong here," she murmured, not turning. This place was built to chew warriors. "Apart? It won't even bother with a smith. Then I guess I'll disappoint it," he said without humor. Tysera paused briefly, eyes narrowing, but said nothing. They'd been walking for hours. Between the two of them, silence had become a third presence, less an awkward absence of words, more a charged stillness neither of them quite dared disturb. Corin had wrapped his wrists in woven alloy bands, scavenged from the ruins of the forge they'd left behind. They weren't weapons, but they were strong enough to deflect shrapnel, maybe even a blade. Tysera glanced at them once. "You think you'll block plasma with metal cuffs?" "No," he replied. "But they remind me to be ready." For a moment, she looked as though she might scoff again. Instead, she gave a small nod and kept walking. As they reached the deadfall, cliffs, narrow, spiraling ridges over a chasm laced with spectral lightning, an ambush waited. Not of men, but machines. Old war sentinels, long dormant, reactivated by the presence of living matter. A screeching roar split the air as one leapt. From a crevice, metallic fangs gleaming, Tysera's blade was in her hand, instantly spinning upward in a crimson arc. She cut the beast in half before it hit the ground. "Move!" she barked. Corin ducked just as a second sentinel lunged from above. Instead of fighting it, he dove toward a side alcove, rolling to avoid the creature's pounce. He slammed a maintenance hatch with a piece of broken alloy, and something sparked inside. With a grinding screech, the ledge beneath the machines trembled and collapsed. Dust and debris spiraled into the chasm, taking the sentinels with them. When the silence settled again, Tysera turned slowly to him. "How did you know that hatch was there?" "You're not the only one who studies old war maps," he said, brushing dust from his shoulder. She stared for a beat longer. "You're not useless, I'll admit," he smirked faintly. "Don't get sentimental. Don't get cocky." That night they made camp in a hollowed bunker left from the last age. It smelled of rust and stale power cores, but it was dry. Tysera sat beside the heater core, cleaning her blade in tight, ritualistic movements. Corin wrapped a heating coil around his wrist to ward off the cold. "You're quiet," she said. After a long moment, "Thinking," he replied, "about how I ended up here with you, chasing a myth through a dead zone on a planet that doesn't even want me alive." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned back, resting her head against the stone. "You volunteered," she said. "No one made you." He looked at her then. "Why did you agree to let me come?" "I didn't," she said softly. "I was ordered to. Your skill with the forge was deemed necessary. I was told to protect you, if possible. And if not, then let the land devour." "You," he nodded. "So you plan to leave me behind?" She didn't answer that. Instead, her gaze drifted to the stars visible through the broken bunker roof. "My first command was when I was 19. I led a squad into a trench raid. 4 of them died. I was awarded a blade and a title. Not for keeping them alive, just for winning." Corin said nothing. "I've never failed a mission," she continued. "But sometimes I wonder if that means I've succeeded at anything that mattered." He looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as the blade of Varelli's. Not as the warrior who mocked him. But as someone tired. Someone searching. "I never learned to fight," he said. "But my father taught me how to run. How to fix things, how to stay alive. He used to say, strength isn't in the swing, it's in knowing when not to." She glanced at him. "Wise man. He died in a riot on Earth. Protecting a child from soldiers. Brave man." Corin smiled faintly. "I like to think so." The next day they reached the ruins of the Heartspire. Once it had been a temple. Now it was a broken ring of obsidian towers encircling a single pillar of light. No enemies waited. Only stillness. But the stillness was not peace. It was judgment. The heartstone hovered in the air above the altar, glowing faintly. Tysera stepped forward, hands out. "We came for this," she whispered. But the stone did not move. She gritted her teeth and stepped closer, her armor humming with energy. Nothing. What's wrong? Corin asked. It's dormant, she growled. It won't respond. Let me try. She turned incredulous. Don't be ridiculous. He walked past her. What's the worst it can do? Reject me? He approached the altar, slowly, reverently. His fingers touched the stone, and it blazed with sudden light. Tysera gasped as the glow wrapped around him. Gentle, not violent. The stone hummed like a heartbeat, like it had found something it had waited centuries to feel. Corin stepped back, stunned. What just happened? She stared at him. You activated it. Is that good? She walked up to him, close enough to feel the heat of his skin. It means you were worthy. Worthy of what? Of being something more than you believe you are. That night, as they camped one last time before returning to the stronghold, a storm rolled in. Tysera sat close to the heater, quiet, watching the flames flicker. Corin sat beside her. When we return, she said, they'll try to discredit this, to take the stone, to deny what happened. Will you let them? I don't know. He touched her hand hesitantly. Then let's make sure they can't. She looked at their joined fingers. You're no warrior, she said softly. He met her eyes. You keep saying that. Because I keep trying to believe it. And I'm starting to fail. The Aelari stronghold shimmered under the twin suns of Varelles, its high crystalline towers reflecting 1,000 fractured lights. But the beauty belied the chaos erupting within. Smoke poured from shattered spires, and war horns echoed across the valley. The enemy had returned. Rogue factions of Aelari who refused peace and demanded purity of blood and tradition. Tysera's warship cut through the sky, landing hard on the fractured plaza. Corin stumbled beside her, still bearing the burn from the energy blast that had nearly taken his life. His skin was pallid, pain lining his features, but he stood upright, jaw clenched. They're tearing the council apart, Tysera growled. If they win, your people die. Corin nodded, unsheathing the short blade Tysera had gifted him. He had never used it in war, but he had learned much. Not just from her, but from the journey, the survival, and the heartstone, which still pulsed faintly at his hip. As they moved through the stronghold, chaos surrounded them. Loyalists clashed with zealots. Civilians ran for cover. And in the center court, standing atop the broken dais of the High Council, stood General Krail, Tysera's oldest rival and once her comrade. Tysera Vane, Krail bellowed, his voice amplified by the crown of echoes. You return with a human in tow as your champion, as your mate? What insult is this? He is more than a warrior, she replied, stepping forward. He carries the Heartstone. He saved me, and he may save us all. Krail laughed, drawing his twin warblades. Then let him prove it. The right of Relincourt. Let him face our champion. Let the Forge decide who leads Aelari now. Tysera turned to Corin, heart thundering in her chest. You don't have to do this. But Corin shook his head. Yes, I do. Not for honor, for peace. The arena had been carved from meteoric glass centuries ago, surrounded by ancient watchers whose eyes lit once more. In the center stood Grail, the Aelari champion, nearly twice Corin's height and thick with armor laced with living stone. Corin entered without armor, wearing only his travel gear, his short blade, and the Heartstone tied to his wrist. Laughter again echoed through the crowd. A human, so small, so weak, thought to stand before one bred for war. Grail struck first, a sweeping arc of his blade. Corin dove, rolled, and scrambled to the side, dirt coating his arms. The audience grew silent. He didn't block. He didn't challenge with strength. He moved, read, adapted. Strike after strike came, but Corin used the arena itself, leaping off ridges, ducking beneath fallen columns, baiting Grail into overreaching. The champion roared, slamming a pillar that shattered, spraying shards. One caught Corin's shoulder, blood blooming. Still he stood. At last, breath ragged, he faced Grail across the arena. The heartstone pulsed harder now, light growing. Corin pressed his palm to the earth. "I don't need to win by your rules," he whispered. "I only need to change them." He jammed the heartstone into the broken pillar. Light flared, arcs of energy racing across the ground. The arena began to quake, not in destruction, but transformation. The pillar reformed, lifting Corin above Grail. He leapt from its height, striking down with a force guided by the heartstone. His blade met Grail's chest, glancing off the armor, but not without purpose. Grail staggered back, stunned, not wounded, but disarmed. The arena fell quiet. Even, the wind paused. Grail, proud and towering, bowed. "You fought like none I have seen. With mind, with soul, with purpose. I yield." In the aftermath, the High Council convened. Tysera stood at Corin's side as peace was declared, not only between human and Alari, but within Alari factions. The Heartstone, guided by Corin's selfless actions, would become a symbol of unity, not war. Tysera stepped forward. "I name Corin Vale not as servant or consort. I name him as equal, as builder, and as warrior." Cheers rose from the audience, both human and Alari. Months passed. In the newly rebuilt halls of the Forge, Tysera trained young warriors not in just blade, but in balance. Corin, his arms scarred but strong, taught others how to build, how to repair, and how to endure. On one quiet evening, as the suns dipped behind the horizon and golden light spilled across the plains, Tysera stood beside Corin at the watchtower. "When I first met you," she said softly, "I said you were no warrior." Corin smiled. "You weren't wrong." She turned to face him. "But you became the kind we needed. The kind I didn't know I wanted." They stood there, fingers entwined, looking out over a world that at last was healing together.